my son sent a message to our family group chat on my phone. He thought it would be better if his dad kept his distance for a while. My daughter-in-law reacted with a thumbs up emoji. I replied, "Understood. I will respect that. And I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage and the monthly transfers of $1,500. That night, my phone blew up with desperate calls. You know that moment when you feel the floor disappear from under your feet? I was in the kitchen stirring the stuffing for my turkey and mashed potatoes on the stovetop. That savory sage and butter recipe that my grandmother taught me, the one my son Michael always loved since he was a little boy. The aromatic, comforting steam rose, filling my house with the smell of happy memories. My cell phone vibrated on the counter. It was a notification from the family group chat. I wiped my hands on the light blue apron, stained with years of shared stories and meals, and picked up the phone. My heart was calm. Maybe it was Michael organizing Sunday dinner, or my granddaughter Sophia sending a drawing. At 68 years old, these small joys still brightened my day. But what I read on that screen made my blood run cold. Family, we've decided it's better for Dad to keep his distance for now. We're going through a delicate time and need space. 27 words. That was all it took to destroy 30 years of sacrifices, sleepless nights, hands calloused from construction work, and swallowed dreams so theirs could come true. My eyes reread the message 3 times, as if trying to rearrange the letters into something that made sense, something that wouldn't split my chest in half. But there it was. My son, my only son, the boy who came from me, whom I raised alone after losing my wife in an accident when I was 35, was asking me to disappear from his life. And right below it, like a final stab, I saw the blue thumbs up from Jessica. A thumbs up as if it were a funny video, as if it were any news at all, as if it wasn't my life, my place in the family I built brick by brick. My sister Martha was in the group. Silence. My brother-in-law, Robert, also there. Silence. No one said anything. No one defended me. No one asked, "Michael, what is this all about?" I turned off the stove. The turkey stuffing stopped bubbling, but something inside me continued to boil. I sat down in the kitchen chair, the dark wood one I brought from my mother's house when she died, and let the phone drop into my lap. How did I get here? I, who worked 16 hours a day as a construction worker to pay for his private school. I, who never took a vacation, because every single dollar counted to ensure he had everything. I, who could have remarried. I had offers. Yes, I was still young, but I chose not to bring anyone home so as not to confuse my boy. So he would grow up knowing he was my absolute priority. Now at 68, with calloused hands and a back bent from carrying so much weight, I was being thrown out like old furniture that no longer matched the new decor. But do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't their words. It was her thumbs up. That tiny, casual, almost automatic gesture that showed me exactly what I was to them. An inconvenience. I took a deep breath. The smell of the turkey and mashed potatoes was still in the air, but now it made me nauseous. I thought of all the times I swallowed my opinion just to avoid seeming controlling. All the times I smiled when Jessica treated me coldly. All the times I pretended not to notice that they were excluding me, hoping it was just a phase, that things would get better. I picked up the phone again. My hands were shaking, not from weakness, but from a cold, lucid anger I had never felt before. I started to write. Every word was a decision, every comma a choice. Understood, Michael. I will respect your request. And I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage, $800 a month. The monthly transfers, $1,500. And Sophia's health insurance, $250. I hope you get the space you need. With love, Dad. I pressed send. Then I threw the phone onto the sofa. I went back to the kitchen and dumped all that turkey stuffing. Hours of work, memories of 3 generations, straight into the trash. Because right there, in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Love without respect doesn't feed anyone. That night, my phone blew up with desperate calls, but I was no longer available to answer. And that is the story of how I finally learned to value the only person who always valued me, myself. If you want to know how it all started, how I reached this breaking point, and what happened after that night, come with me. Subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will make you rethink every relationship in your life. Let me tell you how I became the intruder in the family I built myself. Because no one wakes up one day and simply decides to let themselves be humiliated, you know? It's a slow, silent process, like rust eating metal. You only realize the damage when it's almost too late. It all began 3 years ago, on a Saturday in March. I was in my living room fixing a shelf when Michael called me, excited. "Dad, I met someone special. I want you to meet Jessica." My heart leaped. My son, at 35, had always been reserved about relationships. Hearing him so radiant filled me with hope. Maybe he had finally found someone to start a family with, to be happy. The first time I saw her, I thought she was beautiful. Long, straight hair, always very well dressed, perfectly manicured nails, the kind of gel nails that cost a fortune. She smiled at me. She hugged me. She said she had heard a lot about me. "You are an inspiration," she told me with that sweet voice, which I later learned to distrust. The first few months were normal. Dinners, meals, polite conversations. But there were already small, almost imperceptible signs. Like that time I brought a chocolate layer cake with fudge frosting, a recipe I always made for Michael on his birthdays. Jessica looked at the cake. She smiled and said, "That's nice, Mr. Smith. But we're trying to eat healthier, you know? Michael even goes to the gym now." And she pushed the cake to the corner of the table as if it were something embarrassing. Michael didn't even protest. Then came the simple wedding in a rented venue. I offered to help with the preparations, but Jessica already had everything under control with her mother, Hope. I was left with the role of a guest at my own son's wedding. But the worst really started when they got married and the requests began to arrive. First, they were small. "Dad, can you lend $200 for an online course Jessica needs to take? It's important for her career." I gave the money without hesitation. After all, she was my daughter-in-law, part of the family now. 2 weeks later, "Dad, their refrigerator broke down. Can you help with $750? I helped. A month later, "Dad, Jessica's car has a problem. $960 for repairs." I helped again. I always gave, always, because I thought, he's my son. If he needs it, I help. That's what fathers do. But then came the big request. Michael came to my house one Thursday evening with that slightly embarrassed way he had when he was about to ask for something big. He sat on the sofa, fidgeted with his hands, and finally blurted it out. "Dad, Jessica and I found the perfect house. It's in a subdivision, safe, 3 bedrooms, a good area for when we have kids. But we need $28,500 for the down payment." $28,500. My stomach churned. It was almost all I had saved. The lot my late wife, Diana, had bought back in the 1980s, which had increased in value over time. It was my security, my plan B in case something happened to me. But when I looked into my son's eyes, I saw Diane there. The same hazel color, the same hope. And I thought, What do I need security for, if not to help the people I love? I sold the land, and I gave them the $28,500. Michael hugged me tight. He said I was the best dad in the world, that they would never forget this. Jessica sent a message. Thanks, father-in-law. You are an angel. 3 months later, they moved into the house. But when the first mortgage payment came, $800 monthly, Michael called me anxiously. Dad, we can't afford it. Jessica still hasn't passed the exam she was studying for, and my salary isn't enough to cover everything alone. Can you help out just for a few months until we get organized? Just for a few months. I knew it was a lie. Deep down, I already knew. But parents have this flaw. We believe because we want to believe. I took over the mortgage, and then the monthly transfers began. First, it was $600 to help with household expenses. Then it turned into $1,050. After that, $1,500, always with the same excuse. Just until we get back on our feet. I cut back on expenses. I canceled my private health insurance and kept only the basic one. I stopped buying new clothes. I started eating more beans and rice, less meat. But I sent the money every blessed month because I thought I was investing in my son's happiness. But the more I gave, the less I received in return. Sunday dinners, which used to be sacred, began to be spaced out. Dad, we're tired. We're staying home today. With Dad. Jessica invited her family. We'll see you next time. Next. When I called, Michael answered hurriedly, always rushed. Hello, Dad. I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you later. And he never called back. When Sophia was born, my beautiful granddaughter with big eyes and round cheeks, I thought things would get better. But they got worse. Jessica didn't want me to hold the baby much. She said it was important to respect their space as parents. I, who raised a son alone, now had to ask permission to hold my own granddaughter. And Michael? Michael just nodded in agreement, always by her side. That's how, little by little, I went from being a father to being an ATM. Until that dinner came, the dinner that changed everything. But I'll tell you about that in the next part. Because what happened that night was the final straw that broke a glass I didn't even know was full. 3 weeks before that message that destroyed everything, I received an invitation that filled me with hope. The foolish hope of someone who still believes things can get better. Jessica called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Smith, we'd like to invite you over for dinner at our place on Saturday. It's been a while since we've really seen each other, hasn't it? Her voice was strangely cheerful, almost forced. But I didn't want to be suspicious. It had been 4 months since I had set foot in their house. 4 months since they became too busy to receive me, so that invitation seemed like a truce, a sign that perhaps I had exaggerated my concerns. I spent the entire week preparing. I got my hair cut at the barber shop, $15 that I hadn't planned on spending. But I wanted to look nice. I chose my sea green button-down shirt, the one Michael once said looked great on me. I bought a bottle of good bourbon for $20, because Jessica always talked about fine drinks on her social media, and I baked a key lime pie. That pie was special. Not just a recipe, but a living memory. When Michael was 7 and was hospitalized for 3 days with pneumonia, I promised him that when he got out of the hospital, I would make him the best key lime pie in the world. I spent the whole afternoon in that tiny kitchen of our old apartment, whipping egg whites with a fork because we didn't have a mixer. When he took the first bite, his little eyes lit up. Dad, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. Since then, whenever he was sad, anxious, or needed comfort, I made that pie. I arrived at their house on Saturday at 7:00 p.m., right on time. I rang the doorbell, holding the pie with both hands, feeling my heart beating faster than normal. Jessica opened the door in slippers, those pink fuzzy ones. She hadn't even changed. She was wearing sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, her hair pulled up in a messy bun. "Hi, Mr. Smith. Come in." No hug, no genuine smile. I walked in. The house smelled like takeout food. Pizza boxes stacked on the kitchen counter. Pizza. They invited me over for dinner and ordered pizza. "Sorry, we ran out of time to cook," Jessica said without looking me in the eyes, already heading back to the sofa where she was checking her phone. Michael appeared from the laundry area, drying his hands with a towel. "Hey, Dad." A quick mechanical kiss on the cheek. "Sit down. Make yourself comfortable." I stood in the living room, still holding the pie and the bourbon, feeling completely out of place. Sophia was on the floor playing with dolls. When she saw me, she ran toward me. "Grandpa!" My heart warmed. At least someone there was still happy to see me. "Sophia, come here. Let Grandpa sit down," Jessica shouted at her in a dry tone. I put the pie in the refrigerator. No one commented. No one said it smelled good or thanked me for bringing it. The pie simply existed there, ignored. We sat down to eat. Or rather, they ate pizza straight from the box, while I took 2 small pieces and forced myself to swallow them. The conversation was awkward, full of uncomfortable pauses. That's when Jessica started. "You know what, Mr. Smith? I was watching a documentary the other day about how older generations have trouble understanding modern life." She let out a little laugh, looking at Michael as if sharing an inside joke. Michael smiled back at her. "Yeah, it's true. The world has changed a lot." "It's true," Jessica continued, grabbing another slice of pizza. "There are a lot of parents who can't let go of their kids. They stay in that emotional dependency, you know. They think their son has to be available all the time, that they have to report everything." My stomach tightened. She was talking about me without saying my name, but she was doing it. "I find that so suffocating," she continued, now looking directly at me. "Every couple needs their own space, their privacy. You can't have people coming and going all the time, wanting to give opinions on everything." I swallowed hard. I never wanted to be intrusive. "No one is talking about you specifically, Mr. Smith," Jessica interrupted with a fake smile. But it was about me. Every word was a stone thrown in my direction. Michael remained silent. He didn't defend me. He didn't say, "Dad, that's not true." He just nodded and grabbed more pizza. The night dragged on. I tried to play with Sophia, but Jessica soon said it was time for the girl to go to bed. I offered to help with the dishes. It was just the pizza boxes. But Jessica said everything was already handled. At 9:30, I got up to leave. No one asked me to stay a little longer. "Oh, Dad, wait," Michael said when I was already at the door. My heart leaped. Maybe he was going to give me a real hug, to apologize for the strange atmosphere. "Did you already transfer this month's money? The mortgage payment is due tomorrow." Money? That's what this was all about. "I already transferred it on Wednesday," I replied, feeling something break inside me. "Oh, perfect, thank you. Drive safe." I left that house and got into my car. I didn't cry yet. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, looking at that illuminated house, the house I was paying for, and wondering when I had stopped being welcome in it. I drove to my apartment on autopilot. When I walked in, I went straight to the refrigerator. I had saved a slice of the key lime pie for myself. I ate it standing alone in my silent kitchen, and the taste was no longer the same. Because I finally understood. It doesn't matter how much you love. It doesn't matter how much you give. If there is no respect on the other side, you're just feeding yourself with crumbs. 2 days later, I would discover something that would transform that pain into a decision. And it was by overhearing something I should never have heard. There are things in life that, once you hear them, you can't unhear. They are etched into your memory like scars that burn every time you remember them. What happened that Thursday was exactly like that. 2 days after that horrible scene, I woke up with Sophia on my mind. My granddaughter would turn 6 the following week, and I had spent the entire month carving a wooden train set for her. Not just any train, but a special one, handmade, painted blue with white details, just like the one I had as a child. I engraved her name on the side of the engine car. Sophia, with love from Grandpa Richard. I also made tiny tracks for it. I added a red whistle. Every cut was a prayer. Every detail was love transformed into wood and paint. I wanted Sophia to have something no store could sell. Something made by her grandpa's hands, loaded with history. I called Michael to let him know I was stopping by to drop off the gift. No one answered. I tried Jessica's cell phone. Also no answer. I sent a message. Seen, but no reply. I decided to go anyway. It was 2:45 p.m., the time Sophia got home from school. I could leave the gift and go. I didn't even need to go inside if they were busy. When I arrived, the gate was ajar. The gardener probably forgot to close it. I went up to the main door, holding the train wrapped in pink paper. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I rang again. Silence. But I could hear voices coming from inside. The TV was on, maybe. I tried the doorknob. The door was unlocked. Hello? Is anyone home? I whispered, pushing the door open slowly. I walked into the living room. No one. The house was quiet, but the voices continued. They were coming from the kitchen. It wasn't the TV. It was people talking. My instinct told me to leave, but something stronger pulled me forward. I needed to know why they were ignoring me so much. I walked toward the hallway. The kitchen door was ajar, and then I heard Jessica's voice, loud and clear. I'm telling you, Mom, I can't take this man anymore. I stopped. My heart pounded. She was on the phone with Hope, her mother, always wanting to stick his nose into everything. The other day he came over here trying to teach me how to make oatmeal for Sophia. As if I didn't know how to take care of my own daughter. I pretend to listen, but inside, I'm boiling. My hand squeezed the train. I never taught anything. I only commented once, one single time, that oatmeal was good for children's digestion, because the pediatrician had told me that when Michael was small. And Michael doesn't say anything? Hope's voice was heard through the speakerphone. Oh, he's the same as always, you know? He says he's his dad, that he's always been like this, that we have to be patient. Jessica's voice dripped irritation. But patience has limits. The man pays for the house, pays the bills, and then thinks that gives him the right to control our lives. My legs started to shake. That's when I heard my son's voice. Jessica, hang that up. You can finish talking to Hope later. I'm almost done. Hey, Mom, I'll talk to you later. Silence. Then Michael's tired voice. Do you need to have more patience with him? He's alone. We're all he has. Exactly why he clings to us so much. That's not healthy, Michael. I know. Then why don't you do anything? And Jessica raised her tone. I didn't marry you to have my father-in-law practically living inside our house all the time. I'll bring you some candy. I'll bring something for Sophia. Can I come over on Sunday? A pause that was too long. I'm going to talk to him, Michael finally said. Talk? What kind of talk? Because the way you talk, he'll be back here again soon. Jessica let out a dry laugh. Look, I know he pays for things, okay? I'm not an idiot. But that doesn't give him the right to control our routine. And another thing, he is the burden to us, not us to him. If he didn't have us, what would he do with his life? Sit alone in that old apartment counting money? Burden. Those two words exploded inside my chest like a bomb. I, who had worked since I was 15. I, who raised a son alone. I, who sold everything I had to give them comfort. I was a burden. Don't talk like that, Jess. Michael's voice sounded weak, but he didn't say she was wrong. He only asked her not to talk like that, not that it was wrong. I'm telling the truth, and you know it. Jessica opened the refrigerator. I heard the noise. We need to find a solution to this. Michael, understand that he needs to give us space, or we'll have to be more direct. Tell him he needs to back off a little for his own good, too. I couldn't listen anymore. My vision blurred. I took 2 steps back, my legs trembling, holding the train against my chest as if it were a shield. I left that house the same way I came in, invisible, unwanted, disposable. I got into the car, and only there with the doors closed did I break down. I cried like I hadn't cried since Diane's funeral. I cried because it hurts. It hurts in a way that has no cure. To discover that you mean so little to someone you love so much. The train was on my lap. That blue paint, those white details, that name engraved with so much affection. Sophia with love from Grandpa Richard. I took the train back home. It never reached my granddaughter's hands. And for 3 days, 3 long days, I locked myself in my apartment and let something die inside me. The illusion that I still had a place in that family. But do you know what happens when something dies inside us? Sometimes something else is born in its place. And what was born in me was something I never imagined I would have the courage to feel. Clarity. I spent 3 days locked in this apartment, not eating well, not sleeping well, unable to do anything but ruminate on those words. He is the burden to us, not us to him. The first day, I only cried. I cried until I had no more tears, until my throat hurt, until my eyes were so swollen I could barely open them. I ignored Martha's calls. I ignored messages from the church group. I ignored the whole world. The second day, the anger arrived. A muffled rage that burned inside like forgotten embers. I walked back and forth across the living room, talking to myself, going over every moment of humiliation, every slight. Every time I swallowed my dignity and pretended everything was fine. I picked up Sophia's train, which was still on the table, the one I brought back and never delivered, and almost threw it in the trash. But I couldn't, because it wasn't her fault. It wasn't the fault of a 6-year-old girl that the adults around her had forgotten what gratitude was. The third day, something changed. I woke up at 5:00 a.m. I had barely slept, but when I opened my eyes, my mind was strangely clear. I got up, went to the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. What I saw scared me. A 68-year-old man looked back at me with deep wrinkles around his eyes, messy white hair, and drooping shoulders. But it wasn't the marks of age that scared me. It was the expression. It was defeat. It was resignation. It was surrender. And suddenly, do you know what I saw in that reflection? My father. My father, Robert, who raised 5 children on a farm alone after my mother left with another man. He worked until his bones ached, until his hands became rough from so much labor. until his spine bent from carrying so much weight. And do you know what he told me once, shortly before he died? Richard, never let anyone make you feel small. Because you are not. You are the backbone of your life, and a backbone doesn't bend. It breaks or it holds. Choose. I looked deeper into the mirror and made my decision. I was going to hold. I left the bathroom, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened my old laptop. The one Michael gave me 5 years ago, saying I needed to join the digital world. I turned it on and waited for it to load. My hands were still shaking, but no longer from weakness, but from determination. I logged into my bank history and started printing every transfer receipt, every transaction slip, every mortgage payment. I organized everything by date in clear folders, as if I were building a legal case. March 2022. $800 for the mortgage plus $600 in aid. Total $1,400. April 2022. $800 for the mortgage plus $750 in aid. Total $1,550. May 2022. $800 for the mortgage plus $900 in aid. Total $1,700. I kept adding, month by month, year by year. The amounts increased over time, from $1,500 monthly to $2,400, sometimes $2,700 when there were emergencies, air conditioning repair, car problems, Sophia's private school. When I reached the total, my stomach turned. $80,100. $80,100 in 3 years. That didn't include the $28,500 for the house down payment. That didn't include the gifts, the clothes I bought for Sophia, the meals I paid for, the small favors that became routine. I printed the complete statement, 42 pages of receipts. I put everything in a blue binder and wrote on the cover with a black pen. Transfer history. Richard to Michael and Jessica, 2022 to 2025. Then I went to the nightstand drawer where I keep old documents and took out the deed to their house. Because yes, I had a copy. After all, I gave the down payment. I paid. I had the right to have it. I read every line. Owners, Michael Augustus Wilson and Jessica Costa Wilson. My name did not appear anywhere. Not as a guarantor, not as a donor, not as anything. Legally, I had no right to that house. But morally, that house was mine. I picked up the phone and called lawyer Hernandez, an attorney I met years ago when he needed a suit repaired, and came to my tailor shop. We became friends. He always told me, Richard, anything you need, you can call me. It was time to need. Lawyer Hernandez, it's Richard. I need a consultation. It's urgent. He received me in his office that same afternoon. I showed him the receipts, the deed, and told him the whole story. He listened in silence, glasses perched on the tip of his nose, scrutinizing the documents. When I finished, he sighed deeply. Richard, legally speaking, you have 2 options. Either you consider everything a gift, and then you can't recover it. Or you file a lawsuit for collection, claiming they were unpaid loans. But I never made a contract. I never asked them to sign anything. I know, but the receipts are all here. And more importantly, there is a history of communication between you. Messages, emails, audio where they asked you for the money. He looked at me over his glasses. I took out my phone, opened WhatsApp, and started scrolling. Dad, I need help this month. It's really tight here. Dad, can you deposit another $300? An unexpected bill came up. Dad, thanks for the help. As soon as we get back on our feet, we'll pay you back. We'll pay you back. That promise appeared in at least 10 different messages. We'll pay, we'll pay, we'll pay. They never paid. Here, I showed Lawyer Hernandez. They always said they were going to pay. He smiled for the first time. Then they weren't gifts. They were loans. And loans have to be repaid. I spent the next 2 hours in that office assembling a full assessment. Lawyer Hernandez was clear. I could go to court, but it would be long, draining, and painful. Or I could do something more direct. Just stop paying, he said. There is no contract obligating you. The house is in their name, not yours. You can, at any moment, decide you no longer want to sustain this. And what can they do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The most they can do is try to sue you for breach of verbal agreement. But with these messages saying they would pay you back, you have much more power to accuse them of breach than they have to accuse you of anything. I left that office with the blue binder under my arm and a certainty in my chest. I wasn't a burden. I was the structure, and structures can be removed. Over the next few days, I organized everything. I photographed every document. I saved every conversation. I prepared everything as if I were setting up a chessboard, and I was about to deliver checkmate. But before that, I needed to wait for their move, because I knew in my soul that they would do something. Jessica had no patience. She would pressure Michael, and Michael, weak as he always was when it came to her, would give in. I just didn't imagine it would be so fast. 5 days after my conversation with Lawyer Hernandez, my cell phone vibrated with a notification from the family group chat. And that's when everything changed. I was organizing my toolbox that Thursday afternoon. Colored screwdrivers scattered on the table, nuts and bolts separated by size, tools being tested one by one. It was a task I did almost in a trance, my fingers working alone while my head was elsewhere, planning the next steps. Since the conversation with Lawyer Hernandez, I had been sleeping better. Not because the pain had passed, but because now I had action. And action heals better than any medicine. My cell phone was on the table, next to the set of screwdrivers. When it vibrated, I didn't look right away. I thought it was an ad, or a message from the church, or Martha sending me another recipe video that I knew I would never make. But then it vibrated again, and again, and again. I picked up the phone. There were notifications from the Wilson family group. That group Michael created when Sophia was born, saying it would be to keep everyone connected. In practice, it became a dead space where no one really talked. They just sent good morning messages with flowers and birthday greetings. I opened the app and read, "Family, we've decided it's better for Dad to keep his distance for now. We're going through a delicate time and need space. Thanks for understanding." I read it once, twice, 3 times. The words started to dance on the screen, my vision blurred. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't pain, it wasn't anger. It was a kind of disbelief mixed with relief. Yes, relief, because they had finally dropped the mask. I scrolled down. Right below Michael's message, a blue thumbs up. Jessica Costa Wilson reacted with a thumbs up, as if it were a post about the weather, as if it wasn't the expulsion of her father-in-law, the grandfather of her daughter, the man who was sustaining that house. I looked at the other group members. Martha was there, Robert too, my cousin Helen. No one had said anything, just silence. That cowardly silence of those who see an injustice happen and prefer to pretend it's not their business. I put the phone back on the table. I took a deep breath. My hands were no longer shaking. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly. I looked out the window. It was a clear afternoon with few clouds, one of those that tricks you into believing everything is right with the world. But it wasn't, and it would never be again. Not the old way. I went back to the table, picked up the phone, and started writing. Every word was a conscious choice. Every comma was a brick I was laying in the wall. I was building between them and me. Understood, Michael. Pause. Breathe. I will respect your request. Another pause. Now for the good part. And I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage. $800 a month. The monthly transfers, $1,500. And Sophia's health insurance, $250. One more line. I hope you get the space you need. And finally, with love, Dad. I read it 3 times before pressing send. I wanted to make sure every word was perfect, objective, polite, implacable. I pressed send. The blue check marks appeared almost immediately. Seen. I silenced the phone. I turned it face down and went back to my toolbox. I picked up a blue screwdriver and started testing it. My hands were steady. My heart was calm, because for the first time in 3 years, I had done something for myself. 15 minutes passed, half an hour. At 7:00 p.m., I decided to have dinner. I made a simple cheese and tomato omelet. I sat at the kitchen table and ate in peace, chewing slowly, savoring every bite. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't play music. Just silence. And that silence, for the first time in a long time, wasn't heavy with loneliness. It was light with freedom. At 9:30, I went to take a shower. I left the phone in the living room, still face down. I took my time in the shower, letting the hot water wash away not only my body, but also 3 years of accumulated humiliation. When I got out, I dried myself off calmly, put lotion on my hands, the lavender one I always bought but rarely used because I had to economize, and put on my most comfortable pajamas. It was almost 11:00 p.m. when I returned to the living room. And that's when I saw it. The phone was vibrating, literally vibrating on the table, moving from side to side with so many notifications arriving at the same time. The screen turning on and off, like a heart in a panic. I picked up the phone. 47 missed calls, 23 from Michael, 15 from Jessica, 9 from unknown numbers, probably them calling from another phone when they saw I wasn't answering. And the messages. Oh my God, the messages. Michael 2347. Dad, I need to talk to you urgently. Michael 2349. Dad, please answer. Michael 2352. Dad, don't do this. Michael 2355. Dad, I didn't mean it that way. Michael 2358. Dad, we need to talk. From Jessica. Jessica 1528. Mr. Smith, I apologize if you were offended by Michael's message. It wasn't our intention. We are going through some issues, and it came out wrong. Jessica 1545. Let's have a meal. Let's talk calmly. I'm sure we can fix this. Fix it? As if it were just a misunderstanding. As if 3 years of disrespect could be fixed with a meal. I didn't respond. On Saturday morning, Martha arrived. She didn't call ahead. She just rang the doorbell and yelled, "Richard, it's me! Open up!" I knew it was her by her voice. Martha was always direct, no beating around the bush. I opened the door. She walked in like a hurricane in her flip-flops, hair pulled back in a ponytail, carrying a bag with still warm blueberry muffins. "I came to have breakfast with you, and I want to hear everything," she said, walking past me straight into the kitchen. "Put some water on to heat up. I brought good coffee, too." We sat at the little table. As we ate, I told her everything, from the horrible dinner to the conversation I overheard, to the group message and my response. Martha listened in silence, chewing slowly, her eyes fixed on me. When I finished, she wiped her mouth with a napkin and said, "You did the right thing." My chest tightened. I didn't know I needed to hear that. Seriously? Seriously, Richard. I've seen you fade away these last few years. I saw how you became a shadow of yourself, chasing crumbs of affection from that boy you raised. And I didn't say anything, she sighed, because I thought it wasn't my battle. But it was. I should have woken you up a long time ago. They're desperate, I murmured. And they're going to get more desperate. Martha grabbed another muffin. Now they're going to have to become real adults, pay their own bills, take responsibility for their own decisions. And you know what I think? It's the best thing you could have done for them. It doesn't feel like it, I said. It never feels like it at first. She looked at me with that seriousness that only older sisters have. But after the dust settles, maybe, just maybe, they'll understand what kind of man you are. Martha stayed with me for the rest of the morning. We watched a bad movie on TV, laughed at silly things, ate chocolate pudding straight from the mold. For the first time in months, I felt light. When she left in the afternoon, she hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "Don't back down, Richard. Promise me." I promise. But the truth was, I still didn't know if I could keep that promise, because while my head was firm, my heart was still bleeding. On Sunday, they tried again. This time they sent Sophia. I heard her little voice over the intercom. "Grandpa, it's me, Sophia. Dad says you're sad. I brought you a drawing." My heart was shattered. I pressed the button. "Hello, my love. Grandpa isn't feeling well today, okay? But I'm so happy to know you made a drawing. Tell Dad to bring you another day." "Are you sick, Grandpa?" I closed my eyes. "No, my angel, just tired. But Grandpa will feel better soon." "Okay, I love you. I love you too, Sophia. More than anything." I released the button and collapsed onto the floor, crying. Because there are things we do that are right, but they hurt as if they were wrong. And distancing myself from my granddaughter, even knowing it was her parents' fault, not mine, was one of those things. But I couldn't give in. Not now. Not after having come this far. The mortgage payment was due on Monday. And that night, Michael sent me the longest message I had ever received from him. "Dad, the payment is due. We can't pay it. I tried to get a loan at the bank, and they didn't approve it. Jessica is desperate. Sophia asked about you 3 times today, and I don't know what to tell her. Dad, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please don't do this. Don't let us lose the house. Not over pride, please. Not over pride." He thought it was pride. I wrote slowly. "It's not pride, Michael. It's dignity. You asked for space. I gave it to you. You called me a burden. I heard it. Now you need to understand that respect is not asked for. It is earned. And when it is lost, sometimes it doesn't come back." I sent it and turned off my phone. That night I cried again. But this time it was a different cry. It wasn't one of desperation. It was one of mourning. Because I was burying the father I had been to make way for the man I needed to be. And this man no longer accepted crumbs. A week passed. 7 days of heavy silence, of a cell phone I kept off most of the time, of nights where I woke up in the middle of the night wondering if I had done the right thing. That Wednesday, I was in the living room folding laundry when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Martha, but her face was different, tense, nervous. I opened the door. "We need to talk," she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "And you're not going to like what I have to tell you." My stomach churned. "Did something happen to Sophia?" "No, the girl is fine." Martha ran her hand over her tired face. Sit down, Richard, please. We sat on the sofa. She wrung her hands for a moment, clearly choosing the right words. Do you remember how I didn't comment when Michael sent that message to the group? I remember. It's because I was too in shock to react at the moment. But later I got really angry. So last Friday, I called Jessica. My heart started beating faster. I wanted to understand what the heck had happened for them to do that to you. And what did she tell you? Martha took a deep breath. She opened up to me because I think she sees me as an ally, you know. I was always polite to her. I never interfered. So she thought I was going to be on her side. And what did she say? She said that delicate time thing was a lie. There was no delicate time. What there was a plan. I felt my blood run cold. What kind of plan? Jessica wanted to distance you because she was planning to remodel the house, specifically to convert the guest room, the one you used when you stayed overnight, into a luxury walk-in closet. I froze. A walk-in closet? A walk-in closet. She even showed me the Pinterest project. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors, illuminated shelves, all that fancy stuff. The budget? $10,500. Martha shook her head, incredulous. And she told me this, without mincing words. We can't do the construction with the father-in-law coming over all the time. He's going to want to give his opinion on everything. He's going to complain about the mess. He's going to be a headache. So they decided to cut you off. My throat closed up. Cut me off. As if I were a weed that needed to be pruned. Martha took my hand. But there's more. She said something that made me want to reach through the phone and slap her. What? That you were too clingy. That she couldn't stand you wanting to come every weekend. That you wanted to be part of their lives. But here comes the best part. We need his money, so we have to find a way to keep the cash flow coming, but without having him around. The words fell like a brick in my chest. Keep the cash flow coming without having me around. As if I were a faucet they could turn on and off whenever they wanted, but without having to endure the sound of the dripping water. She said that word for word. And you know what else? I did some digging. Martha took her phone out of her purse and started scrolling. Because something didn't add up for me. They said they were tight on cash, that they didn't have money. But Jessica is always posting photos at expensive restaurants, new clothes, manicured nails. She turned the phone toward me. It was Jessica's Instagram, a photo of a table full of sushi. Celebrating Friday, the caption said. She kept scrolling. Another photo. Jessica with a designer handbag, smiling. A little gift for me. One more, her and Michael at a bar. Colorful cocktails on the table. Date night is sacred. This is from the last 2 months, Martha said. While they were crying to you that they had no money, look what they were doing. I started adding up in my head. That Japanese restaurant. At least $120 for 2 people. The handbag. I recognized the brand. No less than $750. The constant outings. Each one easily cost $180 to $240. They were burning the money I was sending, I whispered. Exactly. And there's more. Martha showed me another photo. This one was from 3 weeks ago. Jessica in a home decor store holding fabric samples. The caption, choosing the details for my dream that is coming true. The walk-in closet? She was already planning that darn walk-in closet before she threw me out. Martha, how did you find all this out? Because I paid attention to what she didn't say. When I spoke to her, I asked her if they needed financial help, if things were very tight. Do you know what she answered? Oh, it's not that bad. It just needs some adjustments. Adjustments? The woman who, according to Michael, couldn't even pay the mortgage said they were just adjustments. My blood boiled. It was all planned. It wasn't a moment of anger. It wasn't stress. It was calculated. Coldly calculated. "There's one more thing," Martha said, hesitating. "Promise this is going to hurt. Tell me." "Michael, he knew everything from the start," she sighed. Jessica slipped up. She said she had talked to Michael and that he agreed you needed space. She used the plural, Richard. Both of them together. My son. My son whom I raised alone, whom I clothed, fed, put through school, for whom I sacrificed everything. He was in on this. He knew it was a lie. He knew it was to push me away so they could remodel. And still, he sent that message. I got up from the sofa and went to the window. I needed air. I needed space to process all this. "Richard." Martha's voice came from behind, soft. "I know it hurts, but you needed to know the truth." I turned toward her. "Thank you. Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do?" I looked at my sister. This woman who had always been by my side, who had never judged me, who was now here bringing me the naked truth, even knowing it would break me. "Nothing," I replied. "I'm going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. Nothing." "You're not going to confront them? What for? To hear cheap excuses? To have them invent more lies?" I shook my head. "No, they dug their own hole. Now they're going to have to figure out how to get out." Martha nodded slowly. "What if they lose the house?" That question hung in the air, heavy, real. "They will learn that when you bite the hand that feeds you, you eventually go hungry," I said firmly. Martha stayed a little longer, but I barely heard what she was saying. My head was elsewhere. I was thinking about that $10,500 walk-in closet, those expensive dinners, those designer handbags. All financed by me. All while they told me they were tight on cash. All while they treated me like a burden. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room in the dark, staring at the ceiling, letting the anger and pain transform into something more solid. Determination. Because now it wasn't about money anymore, or about the house, or about pride. It was about something much bigger. It was about teaching that love, without respect, is vampirism, and that I was no longer available to be sucked dry. They wanted space. They were going to have all the space in the world, and along with it, all the consequences. 2 months passed. 60 days of absolute silence on my part. 60 days in which their world began to collapse. And I just watched. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I held the phone with a trembling hand, almost writing, "Okay, let's talk." There were mornings when I woke up with a tight chest, thinking about Sophia, wondering if she missed me, if she was confused, if she was okay. But every time I weakened, I remembered. I remembered the word burden. I remembered the blue thumbs up. I remembered the $10,500 walk-in closet that was worth more than my presence. And I held firm. Martha kept me informed, not because I asked her to, but because she thought I had the right to know the damage my absence was causing. In the first week, Michael tried to negotiate with the bank. He asked for a payment extension. They got 5 more days. They borrowed $800 from Hope, Jessica's mother, to cover the mortgage, but only the mortgage. The rest of the bills went unpaid. In the second week, the cable was cut. Then Jessica's gym membership. Then the dinners out. In the third week, the bank denied Michael's loan application. Compromised credit history, they said. Jessica tried to split the balance on her credit card and discovered she was maxed out. They started fighting. Martha found out from Jessica's cousin that they were in crisis. Good. Let them experience the crisis I lived through for 3 years, tightening my belt to keep their life comfortable. In the 4th week, they couldn't pay the second monthly mortgage installment. The bank sent a notice, one more missed payment, and the foreclosure process would begin. That's when Michael showed up here again. It was a Saturday afternoon, almost 3:00 p.m. I was reading on the balcony when the doorbell rang. 3 short, hesitant rings. I looked through the peephole. It was him, alone, without Jessica. And what I saw shocked me. Michael, whose hair was always perfectly in place. He was a mess. Deep, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wrinkled shirt. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 months. Something stirred inside me. That paternal instinct. That ancient, deep thing that wants to protect. That wants to comfort. That wants to fix. But I didn't open the door. I stayed there on the other side, looking through the distorted glass of the peephole as he waited. He rang again. Then he rested his forehead against the door. "Dad, I know you're in there. Please, just listen to me." Silence. I messed everything up, I know. I have no excuse. His voice was broken, hoarse. Jessica and I are not okay. She's blaming me. I'm blaming her. And in the middle of it all is Sophia asking, "Why doesn't Grandpa come anymore?" My chest tightened at the mention of my granddaughter. "We couldn't pay the mortgage again. The bank is going to foreclose, Dad. We're going to lose everything." Hope. I remained silent. I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I treated you like you didn't matter. But Dad, you are all I have. You have always been all I have. And I was too stupid to see it. Tears were running down my face, but I still didn't open the door. Because there was a difference between forgiving and being used again. I wasn't sure where that line was yet. "Okay," he said after a long silence. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry." I heard his footsteps walking away. I heard the elevator arrive. I heard the door close. And only then did I collapse onto the floor and cry. Because as much as he was suffering, as much as my father's heart was bleeding seeing my son like that, a part of me, the part that had been crushed, humiliated, discarded, whispered, "He needs to learn. He needs to understand what he did." A week later, Martha called me. They separated. I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean, separated?" Jessica filed for divorce. She said she couldn't handle the pressure anymore. That it's Michael's fault for ruining the relationship with his father, who paid for everything. That she didn't marry to be struggling. My stomach churned. Sophia stays with Michael during the week, with Jessica on the weekends. But Richard, the house, they're going to have to sell it. The bank gave them an ultimatum. Either they pay the late fees plus a fine, something like $4,500, or foreclosure. $4,500, a pittance compared to the $80,100 I had already put in there. And Michael is devastated. According to Jessica's cousin, he's still living in the house, but he can barely get out of bed. He asked for time off work for depression. I hung up the phone and stared at a wall. My son was depressed. My son was losing everything. And part of me wanted to run over there, hug him, tell him everything was okay, that I would fix it. But the other part, the part that had learned to value itself, kept me firmly seated in that chair. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't love for two. I spent the next few days in internal conflict until one Thursday night I received a message. Not from Michael, but from Sophia. It was a voice note, her sweet little voice. "Grandpa, Daddy let me send you a message. He is very sad. He cries every day. And I'm sad too, because you don't come to see me anymore. You don't love me anymore, Grandpa." My world stopped. You don't love me anymore? That innocent 6-year-old girl thinking she had done something wrong, thinking I had stopped calling her. That night, for the first time in 2 months, I picked up the phone and called Michael. He answered on the first ring. "Dad?" His voice was broken, hopeful. "Let's talk," I said, "but not at your house. At my apartment tomorrow, 3 p.m., alone." "I'll be there, Dad. Thank you. Thank you for—" I hung up before he could finish. Because we were going to talk, and he was going to listen to what I had to say. But this time, it would be on my terms, in my house, with my conditions. And if he wanted a second chance, he would have to earn it, because a father's love is infinite. But self-respect is non-negotiable. And I had learned the most painful way possible that without respect, even the greatest love in the world becomes a prison. And I had chosen freedom. Now it was time to see if he would choose responsibility. Friday, 3:00 p.m., sharp. The doorbell rang. I was sitting in the same chair where I usually work, hands folded in my lap. My spine was straight. I had mentally rehearsed that conversation about 20 times since the night before. I knew exactly what I was going to say, how I was going to say it, and more importantly, what I was not going to accept. I opened the door. Michael was standing there with a paper bag in his hand. Inside, I recognized the sweet smell of apple and cinnamon, the pie I always made for him. "Hi, Dad." His voice came out low, almost a whisper. "Come in." He walked in slowly, as if he were treading on sacred ground. He looked around the living room he had known since he was a child, at the photos on the wall, at the sofa where we used to watch TV together on Sundays, as if he were seeing everything for the first time. "Sit down." I pointed to the sofa across from me. He sat down. He put the bag on the coffee table. "I tried to make it like you do. It didn't turn out the same, but—" "Michael," I interrupted firmly, "it wasn't the pie that brought you here." He swallowed heavily. "I know. Then talk. Say what you came to say." He took a deep breath, his hands trembling. "I've spent the last 2 months in hell, Dad. Not because of the house, not because of the money, but because I finally understood what I did to you." I remained silent, letting him continue. "Jessica, when everything started to fall apart, when the money ran out, she showed who she really was. She blamed me for everything. She said I was weak, that I had ruined everything by letting you go. As if you were an investment she should have held on to better." I listened to that, and I felt a pang, but I let him speak. And that's when I realized, she never respected you. And worse, I allowed it. I saw how she treated you badly, made comments, excluded you, and I did nothing, because it was easier to agree with her than to defend you. Why? My voice came out harder than I intended. Why was it easier? He lowered his head. "Because I'm a coward, Dad. I always have been. You raised a strong man, but I chose to be weak." Those words hung between us. When we sent that message to the group, I thought I was being mature, setting boundaries, creating independence. But the truth is, I was just being cruel and convenient. He finally looked me in the eyes. "Because it was easier to push you away than to confront Jessica." "And the walk-in closet?" I asked. "The $10,500 you were going to spend while saying you were struggling?" His face turned pale. You know. I know everything, Michael. The remodel, the expensive restaurants, the designer handbags. I know you burned the money I was sending while making me believe you were poor victims. He covered his face with his hands and started to cry. Not the contained crying of an adult man, but a child's crying, desperate sobs. I'm so sorry, Dad. So sorry. Part of me wanted to get up, hug him, tell him everything was fine, but the other part, the part that had learned to value itself, kept me firmly in that chair. Being sorry doesn't fix anything, Michael. Being sorry doesn't return $80,100. Being sorry doesn't erase the word burden. Being sorry doesn't heal the humiliation. He lifted his red face, wet with tears. I know I can't fix this. But Dad, I need to try. I need you to know that I've learned. Learned what? That family isn't about money. That love isn't convenience. That you were the only person in my whole life who was always there. Always. And I threw that away. Why? For a woman who left me at the first difficulty. For a house I'm going to lose anyway. For a lifestyle that was never sustainable. I took a deep breath. And what do you want from me now? Forgiveness, he said simply. Just forgiveness. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you to save the house. I'm just asking you for a chance to regain your trust, even if it takes me years, even if I never fully achieve it. I got up from the chair, went to the window, and looked down at the street. People walking, living their lives, each one with their visible and invisible dramas. Michael, do you know what the worst part of all this was? What? It wasn't the money. It wasn't the ingratitude. It was realizing that I had lost myself, that I had stopped being Richard, the man who raised a son alone, who worked until his fingers bled, who always had dignity, to become just Michael's dad. The one who existed only to serve, only to give, only to disappear when he was no longer convenient. I turned toward him, and when you kicked me out, do you know what happened? I found myself again. He looked at me, tears still flowing. I went back to carpentry classes. I started going out with friends from church. I ate at restaurants alone for the first time in my life. And I discovered it's nice. I bought a new shirt. I read 4 books. I went to the beach with Martha. I smiled. But it was a sad smile. I lived, Michael. For the first time in years, I simply lived. Without worrying about whether someone needed me, whether someone was going to call asking for help, whether I had to save another $150 because maybe you were going to need it. Dad, I forgive you, I said, and I saw a wave of relief flood his face. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back to who I was. I understand. I don't think you do. I returned to the chair. I sat down. I'm going to make you an offer, and you're going to accept or reject it. There is no negotiation. The $80,100 I put into your life over these 3 years, plus the $28,500 for the down payment. Total, $108,600. I want a contract acknowledging this debt. Dad, I'm never going to be able to pay that. Let me finish. My voice was firm, allowing no interruptions. You will pay 60% of that amount over 5 years. That is $65,160 or $1,086 per month. If you manage to do it, the debt is settled, and we start from scratch. If you don't manage it, I paused. The house will be sold, and I will receive my proportional share of what I invested. And the other 40%? I forgive it. Consider it a father's gift, but only if you fulfill your part." He remained silent, processing. "There's more," I continued. "I want to resume contact with Sophia, but on my terms. When she wants to see me, not because you or Jessica think you owe me inclusion out of obligation. I no longer accept crumbs of affection. She loves you, Dad, truly. She asks about you every day. Then let me love her too, without interference, without control. Done." And finally, I took a deep breath. "I am not going back to sustaining your life, not anymore. You are a 35-year-old man, Michael. It's time for you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. If you need help, real help, a medical emergency, something like that, I will be here. But dinners out, designer handbags, luxury walk-in closets, you pay for that with your own money." He nodded, swallowing heavily. "I accept all the conditions." "Good. On Monday you will go see Lawyer Hernandez, my attorney. He already has everything prepared. You sign the contract and we move forward." Michael slowly got up. He looked exhausted, but also relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "Can I hug you, Dad?" I hesitated, because part of me was still hurt, still bleeding. But I stood up and opened my arms. He hugged me like he hadn't hugged me since he was a child. Strong, desperate, as if clinging to a life raft. "I'm going to do better this time," he whispered in my ear. "I swear I will." "I hope so," I replied, "because this is your last chance." 8 months have passed since that conversation. Michael signed the contract. He sold the house. He couldn't keep it, as expected. With the money from the sale, he paid part of his debt to me, $42,000. The rest he is paying in monthly installments of $750. Some months he has been late, but he has been paying. He moved to a smaller, simpler apartment. Sophia stays with him during the week, and she actually seems happier. Less tension, fewer fights. Jessica disappeared. She remarried. I heard it was to someone who has money, obviously. Michael and I have lunch once a month. He calls me every week to see how I'm doing. He never asks for money. Sometimes he asks for advice, and I give it when I feel like it. Sophia. Ah, my Sophia. She stays here every Saturday. We make hot chocolate, watch movies, build wooden trains, and on those nights, I feel like I recovered something precious that I had lost. A true connection. Last week she asked me, "Grandpa, why didn't you come to see me anymore?" I sat with her, took her little hands, and told her the truth. Adapted for a 6-year-old, but the truth. Sometimes, my love, we need to step away from those who don't treat us well. Not out of anger, but out of self-love. And now things are better because your dad learned that love is about respect. And I learned that I can be happy alone. Today, as I write this, I am on the balcony of my apartment. There is a new painting on the wall. I painted it in art class. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and that's what matters. I've learned something in these almost 69 years of life. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional acceptance of disrespect. You can love someone infinitely and still say no, still set boundaries, still choose your own peace. I forgave my son, yes. But I will never go back to being that father who erases himself, who disappears, who accepts crumbs. Because I discovered that love without respect is a prison, and I chose freedom. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever had to choose between loving someone and loving yourself, leave me your comment below. Tell me where you are watching from. And tell me, have you ever had to set boundaries in the name of your own self-respect? Like this video. Subscribe to Grandpa's Advice for more real stories like this. And remember, you are nobody's burden. You are the protagonist of your own life. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.